Hello, hello, hello. Come on in, friends. I apologize. Come on in. Oh, my microphone. All right. Hello, hello. It's Jodie Harvala, and I am here for our 31 days of spirit. Today, we're talking about abundance and wealth, which is such a loaded subject for so many right now, right? So jump in, say hello in the comments. I'm an hour late. I apologize. You guys will kind of laugh though. I was actually with a tax person working on my tax stuff, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm actually talking about this today. So it was making me kind of laugh and a little stressed out because I don't like being late, but I apologize. But it was once you got him on the phone, you gotta just talk to him. Hey, Brooke, good to see you. I see Jen and Cindy and Zaina and Kim. Hello, hello. I see Chantel, Sue, Wendy. Hello, hello. Good. I was glad some people can make it. I know 1:00 in the afternoon isn't always an easy time, but for a couple people, you guys said it actually worked better. No, I'm running late today, Linda. I was on the phone with the IRS because they are our friends, which is an affirmation I started many years ago, that the IRS is my friends. So don't trash them. I understand why we trash them, but let's not. All right. Hello, hello. So we're talking about abundance and wealth. I think that is a very loaded question for or topic for people. I am definitely somebody that is still in the midst of working on all of those pieces. And that's kind of where I wanted to start, is because number one, I'm still working on it. When I started my own business, you want to learn about where all your weaknesses are, start a business. One of the places that I really struggled definitely was financial. And I just struggled with it. I struggle with it in my brain. I struggle with how to manage it, how to work with it, how to not be afraid of it all the time. We've definitely had years where we just were broke. And some of the tips and tricks that I've learned over the years has kind of moved mountains. And it's not that things don't get tight sometimes, because they absolutely do. But I know, isn't that funny, Kristen? I know, abundance and wealth, and let me call the IRS. I was pretty much laughing this morning about that. I just thought, oh my God, what a day. But it's the 8th today, and the number 8 is all about the vibration of love and money. And so I thought it was a perfect day for it. Thought it was perfect. And so when, I had a lot of fear-based learned stories around finances. And I also had a lot of mindset things. Like one of the things I affirmed all the time was how broke I was. So broke, I'm so broke, I'm always broke, we're broke, I'm always broke. I never have enough money, la, la, la. And I remember I was in a mastermind with a couple women, my colleagues, and I would say I'm broke all the time. And another woman would say how things never work out for her. Both were lies. And we maybe didn't have a lot of money, but even if I had $1, I'm not broke. I still have $1, right? And so we made a commitment at the time, and we made it kind of a game and a challenge for ourselves, that if we said that particular sentence again, if we affirmed it, that we would have to go on live on Facebook. We would have to do 10 push-ups, and we would have to explain why we're doing the push-ups. And I didn't want to do that at the time. I had a lot of shame around my money pieces. And so I stopped saying that. I just didn't say it anymore. And I would catch myself, but then I would say, no, I'm learning how to thrive. And be like, that's not true. I'm learning how to thrive. And so I think one of the big puzzle pieces for people around finances is you got to think about how you think about it. And you got to pay attention to what you're saying all the time. And one of the things that I used to, my poor tax girl, So I have a beautiful accountant. I love her to death. She has taught me so much. And I used to go in to do our taxes or to talk about money and all that kind of stuff, and I'd cry every time. And I also cry at the dentist. And she's like, I don't understand why you cry every time. She's like, you don't need to. She didn't care that I cried, but she's like, how would you know this stuff if no one's ever taught you? She's like, you teach people every day that have never talked to their angels. They've never talked to their guides. They've never worked with their intuition. They've never, talked to their loved one. Like, you teach people stuff they don't know every day. And she said, and we're just teaching you something new. And my mentor at the time, Sunny, she always is teaching me about money stuff too. And I just felt so stupid about it. And so one of the things that I really had to make a decision on was that I was going to learn about it. And I have many clients where the husband handles the money and they know nothing about it. And it just, like, oh my God, figure it out. You got to know. Because if something ever happens, like, you got to know. One of the things my mom learned, because my dad always did the money, and he just handled it. He was just really detailed and handled it. And she'd learn how to do all that after he died. And I just thought, oh, that's a really lot to learn at that age after a big death like that. And so I just really had to start. I handle the money mostly because I wanted to learn about it. Eli's really good with money. He did budgets. He knows how to budget really well. He knows how to do all the Excel sheet. He knows how to do all of that stuff really well. And he also did it for work. And he still kind of does it for work in a way where he does now. And I just never did. And so me handling the money in our house was forcing me to learn about it and to get over my shit about it. And I had a lot of shit to get over. And it just really was such a struggle for me, because I really resisted just allowing myself to learn and not feel like stupid about it or ashamed about it or dumb or that kind of stuff. And every year I get a little bit better. And every year I handle it a little bit better. And I know how to live broke, and I know how to live when we have extra money, and I know how to just live, just live. And so there's lots of little tips and tricks that we do. So first of all, one of the affirmations that I used a lot, and this was taught to me by several different people out in the world, because I follow different speakers and different stuff. And one of the things that they taught was, if you have a belief about yourself that you're not enough and you're not good enough, then a lot of times that will show up in your outside life. And I was like, oh, that kind of hits me right here. And I didn't like the way that felt. And it kind of brought me to that awareness that I never felt like I was enough. I never felt like I did enough. I never felt like I knew enough. I just was never enough. And so one of the affirmations, and I teach it all the time, those of you that work with me a lot, I am enough, therefore I have enough. And I literally put my hands on my heart. I am enough, therefore I have enough. And when I start to feel myself spin, that is the immediate affirmation I start to go to. If I'm feeling tight financially, I am enough, therefore I have enough. I am enough, therefore I have enough. And I say it 1,000,000 times a day, because something in me is stopping me from allowing abundance or wealth or that flow of energy to come through me. So I just start doing my tools. So if you don't learn anything else today, I am enough, therefore I have enough, and say it 1,000 times a day, every day, and do it for a couple weeks and see what happens. And I have lots of little tips and tricks that I do pretty much daily when it comes to learning how to receive, because that was another big piece for me. Is I'm a great giver. I'm really generous. I love to give things, almost to the point where I sacrifice my own well-being. And I realized I really suck at receiving. And so I had to learn how to be a better receiver, because part of bringing in wealth and abundance is you actually need to be able to receive it. And I couldn't even receive a compliment or someone saying something nice about me, or someone would be like, oh, let me get lunch. And I'd be like, oh my God, no. And I would never receive. And I know there's lots of you that are really good givers, and you suck at receiving. And so, does that make sense for some of you? You're awfully quiet in the comments today. But you got to learn how to be a good receiver. So when someone gives me a compliment, all I can say is thank you. And I don't justify it away like, oh, I love your shirt. All I say is thank you. I don't say, oh, I got it at Boys Ranch for $2.72. Like, I don't justify it anymore. I just say thank you. If someone wants to offer, I have a girlfriend, and she loves to buy lunch for people. She actually loves it. She's told me before, we've had a whole conversation about this. And she goes, I really like to buy people lunch. And she goes, and it really pisses me off when you don't let me do that. And I was like, well, yeah, but why do you love doing that? And she's like, it's just something I can do for my friend. And we had this conversation the summer my dad got really, it's 111, really sick. And I was really struggling. And she's like, can I just buy you lunch? Like, you're so tired right now and you're doing all this stuff. Like, can I just buy you lunch? And it like clicked that I wasn't receiving it. And I was like, all right, you know what? Thank you. I will receive it. And so when she asked me to lunch, she buys lunch and I just receive it. And then sometimes I ask her to lunch and then I purchase it and she gets to receive, because she kind of sucks at receiving too. That's why we would get into this argument, because we're both good givers and we both kind of sucked at the time at receiving. So we made a deal. Whoever asked for lunch, that's who pays, and you got to let the other person do it, and you need to do it without having a grumpy moment. And so I really, and I started to receive help and support from people. One of the reasons that I got a mentor and have stayed with the mentor and have consistently kept that mentor for years is because she was able and willing to help me without the judgment. And I could talk to her about anything. And I might still feel embarrassed or a little bit ashamed, and she could give a shit. But that was one of the reasons I had a mentor, because I needed help. And I didn't necessarily want to ask the world for help, but I wanted someone that I could ask anything about and have some support with. And if she didn't know the answer, she would help me find the help. And another affirmation that really changed a lot was, I'm open to helpful people. I am surrounded by helpful people. If I need help these days, I am surrounded by helpful people. And even with the IRS, there are helpful people at the IRS. The woman I just talked to was so freaking helpful and so kind. And she was laughing because I was like, oh my God, thank you for being so fucking helpful. And she just started laughing. And I was like, no, seriously, like, this was so helpful. And she was so happy, because I'm sure she doesn't get that very often, right? And so when learning to have some helpful people, and I remember when I signed up with Sunny, I was like, I am paying you to help me with stuff, and I am paying you to be my friend. And she's like, yep, I get it. And I have clients that say that to me now. And I get it, because that was really a struggle. It was such a struggle for me, is to allow people to help. And when I do allow people to help, oh my gosh, my life is so different. And then another big thing that I learned, this cracked me up. So most of the time when I would ask for help, it's when things were completely shitty. And you know, when you just kind of, you just got to give and you can't do it anymore. That's when I would ask for help. And one time I was on the phone with my mentor and we were talking about something, and life was really good. And she's like, well, what do you got coming up? And we were talking about some of my plans. And I said, yeah, it'll be, you know, I should probably get some help with that. And she stopped me and she goes, are you going to ask for help when things are going good? Or do you just need to be in a crisis to ask for help? And it had never, ever occurred to me that when life was good, that is when I should ask for help. Never occurred to me. And I remember I just sat there and I was just kind of like, I don't know that I've ever asked for help when life was okay. I just don't think I ever did. And it like shifted this whole thing for me, because I thought, well, shit, if I'm asking for help when things are really good and my vibration is really high, like, imagine all the shit I can get done and all the things that I can do. And I thought that was incredibly helpful. And when I'm asking for help, so I was talking to a woman this morning, she's helping me some stuff with my tax stuff. And I was so honest with her. I'm like, oh, this stuff still, like, I I don't mind the taxes. I don't mind the IRS. It just brings up this fear for me because I used to be very, very uneducated about it. And I said, I really struggle with it. And I'm just bluntly honest with her about it. And she's like, oh, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, nope, I totally know we're going to do that. But I just need to express myself that this is making me freak out. And she's like, oh, yeah, go ahead. It's fine. You can freak out as much as you want, but you know, it's fine. I'm like, nope, I actually know it's fine. I can feel that in my spirit, but my head is freaking out a little bit. And so to be able to just express myself honestly about it, then the help comes, then the friendly lady comes, and then everything's good. And we might have a little, some forms to fill out or whatever, but then it's all good. And I just thought, oh, it's so much nicer than what I used to do to myself. So much better than what I used to do to myself. And so I think the piece around receiving is such a huge piece. It's never about the money. It's never about the money. It is always around all the shit around the money, all your emotions, all your stories, all your fears, all your shames, like all the stuff. And that took me a couple years to understand that concept because Sunny would teach me that. And I'm like, I don't fucking understand what you mean with that. And then I would tell her all my fears that were coming up. And she's like, that's what I'm talking about. That's the piece that's holding you back. And I was like, oh, okay. I got it. And so when I've been working on this stuff, and I'm telling you, I've been working on this forever. Like when I started my business, the restaurant that Eli had worked at for 20 years had closed. He was trying to find where he wanted to be. We really were broke at the moment. And I think we had $9 in the bank or some stupid thing. It was and then I started a business and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea what I was doing. And so where my business has gone from there to now, I'm like, damn, I did that. Like I can appreciate myself for that piece. And because I knew nothing and I really had to get to know myself and ask for help. And so it really helped me to go through some of these bigger moments, which I didn't like at the moment, but learning how to receive help was a big one. Okay. And it isn't, money is energy. I think that's really hard for our heads to get. Like I can exchange energy with people super easy, but when it came to money, it would stop me. And so some little tricks that we've started doing. So back when the kids were really little, we did not travel. We did not have the money to travel. We just didn't travel. And one of the ideas that my spirit gave me to do, I think it was kind of an intuition thing. I had a woman, Danny, that would come over and help us organize. I was so overwhelmed and she would help us organize and sort through things. And she's like, it's really funny, Jodie. She goes, I know you guys struggle financially sometimes. She goes, but everywhere in your house, I find money. I'm finding it everywhere. And I think the message for you is money is everywhere. And we would laugh about it because she literally would find change everywhere, all over my house, just laying there. And I'm like, that was not there today. And she's like, well, it's there now. And so we got a jar and we made a fun jar, not a save for a rainy day jar or save if something goes wrong. Like I don't do it in that kind of energy. I'm saving for fun. And so we had a fun jar and we would put all change in there. If I had some dollar bills, I'd put those in there. If I had fives, I'd put that in there and I would just save it. And it took us like a year, but the next winter, that's how we took our first weekend with the kids and we took them to a hotel and it was like middle for Eli's birthday. And we went to some hotel in like Brainerd because I had a friend of mine, a colleague, and she had a little, kind of like a timeshare thing out there. And she messaged me one day and she's like, why don't you go use it with the boys? And you and Eli go have a fun weekend and no charge. And I was like, what? Like it was one of the biggest gifts I had received in my life at the time. And I was like, really? And so I told Eli about it and he was like, serious, like that's a really fun place because it had a pool, it had game rooms, it was all set for little kids. And so we took all that money in the jar and, we got it in for cash and stuff. And that's how we paid for our gas and our food and the game room for the boys. And we did that probably 3 years in a row. And it taught me that a penny adds up and a nickel adds up. and having a fun jar. And I had that fun jar, I had that sucker right on my dining room table, and I would keep it there because it would remind me that money is always around and I can always put money in there. And that really started shifting, that I could see my money actually grow. And that was really, really a big deal for our family, because one of our big things is we wanted to travel. And I was like, how the fuck do people travel? Like, we have no money. Like, how do people do this? And so over the years, we figured out different ways. I think we used her place 2 or 3 years in a row. And then the next year we could actually afford it. And so we went on our own, or she sold it or something. But it was so beautiful to start to see our growth in that piece. And for me, trying to teach the boys to save, and trying to save them from some of the pain that we had growing up, I thought was a big deal. Another thing that I thought was fantastic, I thought this was the best idea. So we had a credit card, and I don't use credit cards as much as I can. But for business, sometimes we got to use them. And I opened up a savings account through that credit card online, so I never see it. And I started putting $11 a week into it way back when. And that was another tool that Sunny taught us. And then every 3 to 6 months, she would remind us, hey, go increase that a little bit. Go increase that a little bit. And I still use that account, and I still have money coming out every week. The amount's much different now, but that helped me have some money I didn't touch, because I had this whole thing that if you have money, you have to hurry up and spend it, because you never know when it's going to come again. And so, oh my gosh, there's just so many little tips and tricks you can do for yourself, but you got to look at your mindset. You got to see what your stories are. And that, I don't think, is easy to look at. So I did a lot of physical stuff. I have people in my life to teach me. I have a very good accountant. She's very willing to teach me. My mentor was very willing to teach me. I have friends that are really good with money. Like, it's not something I try not to shy away from the conversation anymore. And I remember at one point, I had so many friends that were millionaires. And I thought, oh, these people, you guys, you got to just ignore them. Sorry. I had a lot of friends that were millionaires. And I remember asking my mentor at the time, I was like, I am surrounded by millionaires, and we could not be farther from that. And she started laughing, and she goes, you know what? Sometimes spirit puts you in the energy of something that you need to be in, so you recognize what it feels like. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense to me. She's like, you're really learning about how to grow your money and how to, just manage money and pay your bills. And these people don't really suffer with that. And so spirit wants to put you in that vibration so you can recognize it. And I was like, I never thought about that. And so if I'm learning something in my life and I don't know what that feels like, I'm like, you know what, spirit, put me in some different spaces so I can recognize what that energy feels like. Because then I can align myself to it as best I can. But if I don't even know what it feels like, then how do you change it, right? Because I do think about things energetically so much. And so that was very helpful. And to see that they're normal people too. We had a message growing up that, rich people were assholes. So I didn't want to be an asshole. So I better not get rich. And that's not true. I know tons of wealthy people, and they're beautiful, generous people. And so it's such a loaded question, and it's such a loaded subject. And another piece that I really worked on is the energy side of things, because sometimes you just can't see it. It's an energy thing inside of you. And so I do a lot of clearing around finances for people, and I do sessions on that piece. And we just do a clearing session, but I'm on the line with you so we can talk about it. What are your fears? What do you say all the time? What are you doing? Like, let's look at the vibration of that, because if you have a vibration that you're carrying, sometimes the clearing can help with that piece. Doesn't solve all your problems, okay? But it's a piece of it. And so I think there's many pieces to abundance and wealth. And it's hard to talk about it just, in a quick little 20, 30-minute live. But I think it's worth giving yourself the energy and the room to explore it a little bit and to face it. And so if you have some people in your life that are really good with money, you should ask for some help if they're willing, if they're teachers. If they're those kind of people that are like, yeah, let me help you succeed with that piece. Like, where are you at? I remember the day I sent all of our bills, all of our debt, all of our stuff, and I sent it to Sunny. And I remember beforehand, I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure I'm going to puke doing this, because it was such a vulnerable piece for me in my life to share with somebody outside of Eli. And I remember pressing send, and she picked up the phone for our session. She's like, yeah, this isn't bad at all. We can clean this up. And I was like, what? In my head, it was the worst thing in the whole world, because I had created such a crisis out of it. And she's like, yeah, this isn't going to take long to clean up. And I was like, huh, in my mind, it is. And that was part of my mindset with it. Okay. Does that make sense to you guys? Let me see what you're saying over here. Yeah, I try to receive and I'm bad at it, but that might be your first step, is learn to be more of a receiver. Okay. Yep. Donna gets it. She's like, yep, I am open to receiving that. I'm learning. That's awesome. Kelly says, absolutely. I've done so much work around becoming a receiver. I'm proud of myself for that. Yes. Yeah. Let's not learn lessons anymore. Everyone says, let's learn a lesson. I don't want to learn lessons. I just want to learn differently. Oh, see, that happens, Linda. She said, one of the things I learned when I broke my leg in 8 places was to receive. And it was not an easy lesson to learn. I remember my dad got a pacemaker and he wasn't able to drive. And for me and my dad, that's a big deal. Like, we like our freedom. And I had to pick him up and just take him to the bank. It was like 10 minutes. It wasn't a big deal. And he was going on and on how it was such a big deal. And I was like, Dad, do you think maybe this is happening because you really suck at allowing people to help you? And maybe it's not a big deal for us to help you. And he just got really quiet. And he's like, well, I guess you got a point there. And I'm like, yeah, sometimes you're brought to your knees because you're just not understanding that it's time to learn to receive. And so I really encourage people to be good receivers. Suck at getting help. Yep. Yep. Kimberly said, it's interesting in our society, we're modeled how not to receive. Like, we have to feel all this guilt. It's ridiculous when you really think about it. I've learned to say thank you, and I think that I'm deserving. Yep. Because we were taught that. You give and you give and you give and you become a martyr. Then you become resentful, and then you give some more, and then you sacrifice your own health and wellness and well-being, and then you give some more. A lot of our and so, like, people just, grandma, grandpas, and moms and dad, like, that's how they lived. And I just think the world is shifting in that piece. Oh, interesting, Alice. It's so hard to receive for me. It feels like I'm giving away some of my independence. Yeah, because we're strong, independent women, right? We're taught to be that. And what I found was it actually helped me be even more independent. So a lot of I went on some big road trips and big trips the last couple summers all by myself across Montana. And Eli's truck, the heater stopped working last summer. Like, I wasn't even to Bismarck and the heater stopped working, and I didn't know what to do. And I was like, oh my God. And I had to get to a certain place for a show. So I went there and I was asking the guys at Toyota and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, listen, you're fine. You're really fine. And I could recognize what they were saying was the truth. They weren't just filling me full of shit like some people do, mechanics do. And it was so interesting because I could put some trust in somebody else and receive their information, and I could take it in, and it helped me get through that trip. It still sucked not having a heater, I'm going to tell you. And it was a little bit still scary, but that whole trip, I had to keep asking for help across the whole state of Montana for different things, whether it was a fishing hole, where to eat, where I was going, I'm lost, like whatever. And I felt so strong and independent because I was able to ask for help throughout the entire trip. The whole trip, I asked for help. And so I get the piece of it feels like you're giving up some of your independence, but it was actually the opposite for me. Okay. Kelly Parkhill said a great book is Happy Money by Ken Honda. Never heard of it, but I'm going to have to read it. There is a lot of good money books. I don't know them off the top of my head. A lot of my help has been through my mentorship and my accountant, quite honest. I like the fun jar on the table. That sounds like it'll work for us. Yeah, it was great. I had a big sign on it. I was gonna bring it out today, and I forgot to. I was running late, so I didn't grab it off my fridge. But we kept it on our table for probably 4 years. Kimberly says, I've been paying bills, logging on to my online accounts. I've been getting many eights today in the random codes I received to sign on to my accounts. Yep. And I learned a thing a long time ago. Wes and Lori, they taught me, date your money. Like, go look at your accounts every single day, talk to them, become friends with them. You can't look at your money accounts and hate them every day. Like, you can't do that. And so I had to learn how to be friends with every account that I opened, because I used to not to like open them, because I was like, shit, I wonder how overdrawn we are. And so I really had to learn how to talk to my money in a much kinder way than I did. That's funny. Chandel said, I struggle with this, but I started a dreams and schemes savings account and set the intention, if I'm open to receive, I'm enough, therefore I have enough. Where does patience fit on this topic? Well, I'm not very patient. I do think patience, I don't know if I would bring patience in on that topic. I think it's a really hard, I don't know. I mean, you can practice patience with yourself. I think it's more compassion, and I think it's more understanding, and it's more realizing like, oh, I'm learning and this is going to take a little time. If I bring patience into the sentence, it's not great for me, because I'm very impatient. And so for me, it was more about the end result. It was more about, I know what I'm saving for. I know what I need to do. I would much rather work to travel than work to pay my bills. So I always have a trip in the future, because it helps me to work for the trip. In the meantime, my bills get paid, because that's the thing. You have to pay your bills or you can't go on your trip. But I'm going to have more motivation. I would use motivation over patience any day. And so my motivation is my travel, and my patience level just needs to be put on the back table. But my motivation to do what I need to do is helpful when I have plans. And I have trips that I know someday I'm going to Africa. I know I am. It's down the road. That's going to take me a while to save, because that's a big trip, right? And I have other little trips that I do that help me stay motivated. So whether it's a ski trip, whether it's I have a bigger trip to Spain in September, whether it's a Sedona weekend, something like that. So I will go more into the motivation than I would around the patience piece. Once you put patience in, Alicia, it just messes with it. We have a change jar. It's almost full. Time for a trip. Yep. That book that I mentioned works with stories we have been taught around money. Great. I have a happy fun savings account. Yes. I also do, when you set different affirmations or passwords or things like that, like, it can definitely be around what you want to create. And that's a nice, another little trick. I have alarms on my phone at different times of the day with different affirmations. Some of them around my health, some of them around my wealth, some of them are around, just staying present. And so I use this tool, because this is always on me. I always have my phone close by, and so I use the alarm system, because my head will switch in 30 seconds. I can do an affirmation and I can hold it for just a few seconds, and then it goes into my old story. So setting an alarm reminds me where I want my head to go. And your head is probably your biggest deterrent, because you got to change your stories. Very good, Carla. She said, I started to write on the memo of a check, thank you, when I paid a bill, and it made a difference, like on the electric bill. Yep. I used to do that too. Most of my stuff is automatic at the moment, but the memo trick does work. That was actually a trick for me, is to set up all my payments on auto pay, because that help my mind realize, oh, we need to watch our money. We need to do our work. We need to stay motivated. We need to show up every day for ourselves. We need to do this stuff because those automatic payments are coming out. Whether you want them to or not, they're coming. And so that was a trick that I used for myself too. Okay. So the money piece, you guys, and the wealth piece, it starts so much with your mindset, but it also starts with your education. And I can't believe that they do not teach more of this. And let's not go into the whole bashing of it, but I can't believe they don't teach more of this in schools. Like, this is an everyday, all your life thing you will always have to work with. And so find people in your life that are willing to teach you. And I had to be taught from the basics. I really did not understand so much of it. And when you get in a business and you start making money and stuff, you got to pay your taxes. I did not understand that. I did not understand quarterly taxes. I did not understand estimated quarterly taxes. I didn't know what that was. I just had no idea about any of that stuff. And they would talk to me and I was like, I don't even know what the words are. You are talking a different language to me, because it was so overwhelming. I had to have such teeny tiny little bites, and the consistency of what you need to do to keep it in a nice momentum. Still, I struggle with that. Staying on course with it is still something that I still work on, and I'll always work on it. It's just, I have a very busy brain. And so finding tools and ways to work on things consistently. I have notes up. I have alarms. I have things on my calendar. I have standing appointments. I have mentoring. Like, I have a team of support around me because I need it, because that is how strong my mental brain is on the negative side of stories, where I really want to stay on the positive side of stuff. Okay. And a lot of my affirmations and intentions, a lot of that is just the consistency about creating new stories on where I'm going to focus, because I always focused on the worst case scenario. And so now it's teaching myself to go into a much better place with my mind, because that helps inspiration. It helps the motivation. It helps everything. And it doesn't mean I don't get mad. It doesn't. I was having a little tantrum this morning because I'm like, oh my God, this is so stressful. And then within minutes, I kind of shifted myself a little bit and I was like, okay, got it. Got our answer, got our form, got our shit figured out. So I think you have to have patience with yourself in the learning piece. And the learning piece can humble you a little bit. At least it did for me. And the more I learn, the more strong I feel in it. And to me, for women, I think that's a big deal. I do. I have always thought women learning about money is a big deal. And not that men shouldn't, and not that my boys shouldn't, because we try to teach my boys too. But I really think there's a little bit of a gap in making sure you know what's going on with your money and paying attention to it. And most of us don't want to pay attention to it because, quite honestly, we don't want a budget. But the budgets actually give you more freedom too, because it shows you what you need. It shows you where you're showing up. It shows you where maybe you need to get a little extra work. It shows you where you might be overspending or whatever. And money is meant to go in and out. It just is. And a lot of marriages, one's a spender, one's a saver. That's okay, because that brings in some balance and some harmony in it. When I hang on to money really tight, nothing moves. If I'm still doing what I'm doing, and I'm usually one that does the shopping for the house and stuff like that, I just have more time and flexibility, then all of a sudden the money moves again. And I'm like, that's interesting. That's interesting. Eli's a great saver. He does things as cheap as possible. But I like to plan our travels. And so I get to have that fun, and he gets to do what he does. And so it's a nice harmony with that piece too. Okay. All right. What questions do you have? I know this is something we could talk about forever. Any questions on the money piece? So one of the things that I think there's a lot of outside stuff you can do. Get an accountant, take some classes. Dave Ramsey course is fantastic through churches. There's a ton of books out there. Like, there's a lot of help out there. I also feel like there's sometimes stuff energetically that you could that you could clear as well, that helps all that outside work. So if that's something that you're interested in, make sure you contact us and we can set up a clearing session. And it's kind of a coaching mentoring session too, because then we look at exactly what's going on with you. And I can give some different tips and tricks around that piece. And we're clearing out some of the old sticky energy that keeps you kind of in your habit. And a lot of times it's our habits, you guys. And so your energy has habits just as much as your mindset does. And so I love to do the clearing work on those habits. I think that's kind of a fun way to do it. All right, my friends, I'm not seeing any questions coming in. So we will leave you with that. Oh, there we go. Now we got some. If I hang on too tightly to money, I start to have different physical pains and feelings, and I'm a work in progress. Yeah. So Alice says, why do you feel it's important to not qualify a thank you? It's not a qualify, it's a justify. If someone gives me a compliment, why do I think I need to justify it? Because I don't think I'm enough was my thing. Someone would compliment me and I would say, oh, thanks, because I'm trying to justify my decision. I'm trying to justify that I didn't spend too much on it. I'm trying to justify why I have it. I'm trying to justify all these things around my money piece. And when I just say thank you, then that takes the justification out of it. And I'm just receiving. I am just receiving the compliment without needing to justify it. It's kind of like when you say no to somebody. No, I'm sorry, that's not going to work for me. And then you think you have to justify why it's not going to work for you. Sorry, no, it's not going to work for me because I got to go pick up the kids and I got to go get groceries and then I got to go see this and then I got to go do that. It doesn't matter. I said no, that's not going to work for me, period. I don't need to justify any of that piece. That's more where it comes from for me, Alice, is I don't need to justify when I'm just someone's trying to be kind to me. I just want to take in the kindness and I want to receive it. When I justify it, cancels out the kindness because now I'm justifying it. Kimberly says, I didn't realize how much I do justify a compliment. I'm just going to work on saying thank you. Yeah, it's really interesting. When people give you a compliment and all you can say is thank you, like you're like, oh, I really want to tell them this shirt was only $5 or blah, blah, blah. Like you don't have to justify who you are. You just don't have to. I've had clients that they they really wanted to change the energy around receiving, and they would struggle. And so one of the things we would give them to do was to have a birthday party for themselves. Like, let's say it's their birthday, and to tell their closest friends, hey, listen, I'm really learning how to receive. And so I'm gonna have this party at my house. And I would love for you to bring me a compliment, a note, re-gift me something, buy me a present if you want to, flowers, something where I have to receive it. It doesn't have to be money, but I have to receive it. And I would have women that almost wanted to throw up from it because they would let their friends do that for them. And their friends were so happy because they finally were letting them do something for them. And I thought it was hilarious. Like, I've had people where I try to give them $1 at my retreat. I try to give them $1 and they literally turn like sweat and turn white because receiving to them is such a hard thing to do. So the justification piece is to stop you from negating the receiving that you're meant to do. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So receive. This holiday season, receive. Watch what happens. The more you receive, the more you're full, the more fun it is, the more that you have all this extra that you can give. But what most people do is they give it all away and then they don't receive anything and they're burnt out, tired, and pissed. And so you want to learn to receive so you can give more. That's the fun part. Okay. All right, friends, that's what I got for you today. I do not remember what we are talking about tomorrow. Let me go look. Hold on. Let me see if I got my list handy. Um, Maybe I didn't. Oh, here it is. Okay, so tomorrow, well, see, this is great. Tomorrow, what we're going to do is talk about affirmations and intentions, which is one of my favorite subjects, and I love them. So start to think about in your head a little bit. Start to think about something that you want to feel, or you want to create, or you want to focus on, and let's do a little intention building tomorrow. Okay. Zaina said, my son-in-law told me I was depriving them of giving to me. Yes, ma'am. That's true. That is true. Yep. All right, friends, if you're watching the replay and you have questions, please put them in. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. Saturday, it's supposed to be shitty here, so I will be here for you, and I'll be on time tomorrow. Noon Central Time, and we're going to talk about affirmations tomorrow, okay? Which is awesome. I love talking about affirmations. We got into a little bit today. We're going to do a little bit more tomorrow, okay? All right, friends. See you later. Have a great day. Happy Friday.